Hello, this is Shireen. Today I'll be reading a blog on advocacy in action by people with disabilities about COVID-19. This is from a series of blogs developed from a Twitter chat on disability inclusion and COVID-19 responses, hosted by the Arise Hub. Advocacy in action that is led by people with disabilities is key to promoting change and collective action. People with disabilities have a long history of advocating for their inclusion in decision-making. This continues during the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite this, their rights and needs are poorly articulated and rarely met by the response to the pandemic. In this third blog that summarizes our Twitter chat, we further explore these issues. Some elements of the response, for example, new guidelines that are emerging on the rationing of care, actually undermine the right to health for disabled people. Maximising the participation of people with disabilities in every aspect of the pandemic response is both essential and ethical. We asked what steps are being taken to include people with disabilities in the COVID-19 response. One of our tweeters, Gordon Rattray, answered that the short answer is not enough. Key for disability-inclusive humanitarian response is always meaningful participation in preparedness. We are disproportionately affected by crises and have equal right to aid, so make sure we're involved in all plans from the start. Dialogue and communication between policymakers and people with disabilities is a critical step in ensuring that the first-hand experience of people with disabilities shapes decision-making. As Anna Ruddock put it, the messaging should not be only for us, it should be by us. We should be speaking to each other, not being spoken to by people who do not know our experience. People with disabilities and disability experts should be included in and working with agencies managing the response. To understand how best to do this, many organisations are working together to document the experiences of people with disabilities to be able to advocate for change. The International Disability Alliance tweeted, "Various organisations are conducting surveys on the experiences of people with disabilities, and we want to use the data for advocacy globally and regionally. So it is important for persons with disabilities to speak out. We are listening." Principles and priorities for inclusion. Nothing about us without us is a central concept in organising around disability issues. People with disabilities need to be included in consultation and meaningful participation from the start of initiatives through planning, implementation and monitoring. This includes in emergency, immediate responses to the pandemic, and in developing longer-term post-pandemic plans. For example, as children return to school, it will be important to ensure that most marginalised children are effectively included and supported. The expertise of people with disabilities will be key to ensuring this. The International Disability and Development Consortium tweeted, "For proper inclusive education, any initiatives to use technology and media to facilitate learning should be in a variety of accessible formats. Alternative education provision must be accessible and provides reasonable accommodations based on individual needs." Disabled persons organisations are central to the inclusion of people with disabilities. Key issues that require specific considerations include consultations around safeguarding, adapting information resources to meet a variety of communication needs, and ensuring accessibility of interventions in their design. The International Disability and Development Consortium also tweeted, "Engage people with disabilities, DPOs, in every step for a truly inclusive COVID-19 response. The response must be done with persons with disabilities and DPOs rather than done to or done for. Disabled people organisations have a key role. We need to support them." Shikuku Obosi also tweeted, "Work with disabled organisations, including advocacy bodies and disability service providers, to disseminate public health information." Guiding documents on inclusion and advocacy. A joint statement on Persons with Disabilities and COVID-19 on behalf of the UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is a particularly critical advocacy document in encouraging states to adhere to the ratified principles in the CRPD to ensure that the rights of persons with disabilities are appropriately protected in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Interagency Standing Committee Guidelines on Inclusion of Persons with Disabilities in Humanitarian Action 2019 is also a critical guiding document. One key piece of advocacy is a letter written by the International Disability Alliance to the Director General of the World Health Organization, which highlights the discrimination experienced by persons with disabilities when they're accessing emergency services. Specifically, they challenge the language of dependency and frailty being used in several contexts to deny treatment, which reflects a value judgment that persons with disability are less of a priority than others. Language matters. We should exercise caution in the language that is used in advocacy and discussions about disability. Participants in the Twitter chat cautioned against using stigmatizing language, including on the captions used for images within documents. The International Disability and Development Consortium tweeted, "Language matters. Remember not to use words that exclude certain groups of people or imply they are less worthy. For example, COVID-19 affects only older people and people with underlying conditions." And on that note, I will conclude this blog with a tweet by the International Disability Alliance. All messaging on COVID-19 is for all members in our societies. The information needs to be non-discriminatory and encourage people to support persons with disabilities. Check if they need support due to disruption in services. Thank you for listening.